Welcome to Road of Echoes, the Standing Rock of Yellow Creek, Part 3, The Water Guardian. There are places along Yellow Creek where the water seems to think. Places where the current slows, gathers itself, and moves with a kind of intention that does not belong to ordinary streams. For the peoples who lived in this valley, long before survey lines and township names, these waters were not simply a resource. They were alive. They were aware. And the great stone rising from the bend of the creek was understood as the keeper of that awareness, a guardian watching over the deep places where the visible world and the unseen world meet. To stand at the base of the rock is to feel that presence. The air changes, the sound of the creek shifts, the valley seems to hold its breath. For thousands of years, those who came to this bend, Lenape hunters, Shawnee travelers, early settlers who learned to respect what they could not explain, all spoke of the same thing, that the water here carries a spirit, and that the rock is its witness. This is the story of that guardian, the being of the deep pool, the watcher beneath the stone, the presence that has shaped the lore of Yellow Creek for generations. Let's begin. There is something living under that rock, something that has been living under rocks like it, in creeks like this one across the length and breadth of the eastern United States, for an extraordinarily long time. Longer than the Shawnee, longer than the Lenape, longer than the survey grid, longer than the deed, longer than any human presence in this valley. Its name, in the language of science, is Cryptobranchus alleganiensis, alleganiensis. The eastern hellbender, North America's largest salamander, and in all the accumulated lore of water and stone that this valley carries, the indigenous cosmology, the settler surveying, the industrial era, the conservation reckoning, no figure embodies the full meaning of this place more completely than this one ancient, improbable, extraordinary animal. The eastern hellbender can reach 29 inches in length, the size of a large man's forearm from elbow to fingertip. It is brown and gray and russet, mottled in irregular dark spots. Its body is broad and flat, an adaptation to life in fast-flowing water, allowing it to press against the bottom and resist the current. Along each side of its body runs a thick, ruffled fold of skin, loose, wrinkled, almost geological in appearance, that dramatically increases the animal's surface area for absorbing dissolved oxygen directly from the water. The hellbender does not use gills as an adult. It does not rely primarily on its lungs. It breathes through its skin. It is, in the most literal possible sense, a creature of water chemistry, a living instrument for measuring the health of a stream. The hellbender's tiny eyes, nearly vestigial in appearance, are supplemented by something far more sophisticated, a lateral line system running the length of its body. These organs, shared with fish and a handful of other fully aquatic creatures, detect minute changes in water pressure and vibration. The hellbender feels the creek around it. It feels the passage of a crayfish 3 feet away. It feels, in all likelihood, the weight and proximity of a large rock. For an animal that spends the vast majority of its life hidden beneath flat stones and flowing water, this kind of perception is not a luxury. It is the fundamental grammar of its existence. The hellbender's relationship to rock is not incidental, it is constitutive. Large, flat rocks, greater than a foot across, partially embedded in the stream bed with a single opening facing downstream, are not merely shelter. They are home, nursery, and fortress. In late August and into September, male hellbenders excavate a nest cavity beneath a suitable rock, then wait, sometimes for days, to entice a female to enter. Once she deposits her egg mass, up to 500 eggs in a rosary-like strand, the male fertilizes them and assumes guard duty. He will defend that nest against predators, against rival hellbenders, against the indifferent current, for 60 to 75 days while the eggs develop. This is not instinct in any dismissive sense. It is dedication. It is parenthood in the oldest form available to a vertebrate animal on this continent. The larvae hatch with external gills that persist for the first year and a half of life. Sexual maturity arrives at 5 to 7 years. A hellbender that survives to adulthood can live beyond 30 years in the wild, an extraordinary lifespan for any amphibian. Consider what that means for the standing rock of Yellow Creek. A hellbender that found a suitable den beneath or adjacent to that stone in a good year could, in principle, still be there a generation later. The rock does not move. The hellbender does not move far. They persist together, rock and creature, in the cold and the current and the dark beneath. We said that indigenous peoples across the Ohio Valley understood large standing rocks near water as dwelling places of powerful spiritual beings, water guardians, protectors of the stream, of the fish, of the people who depend on the water. We said this was cosmology, not metaphor. And now science has something to add to that understanding. Because beneath a rock like this one, precisely this kind of rock, in precisely this kind of stream, there is, or once was, a creature that is genuinely ancient, genuinely powerful in its own biological terms, genuinely a guardian of water quality in the most literal, measurable sense. The hellbender does not survive in degraded streams. Its presence tells you the water is clean, cold, clear, and well oxygenated. Its absence tells you it is not. It has been playing this role, silent, patient, submerged, improbable, since before the last glaciers retreated from Ohio 12,000 years ago. It witnessed the first human beings who came to this valley. It witnessed the Shawnee, the Lenape, the surveyors, the miners, the farmers. It does not witness casually. It witnesses by continuing to live. And in too many streams, including too many of the tributaries of Yellow Creek, it has stopped witnessing. Because the streams have stopped being what streams need to be for a hellbender to survive. The primary threat to eastern hellbenders is sedimentation. Sediment, fine particles of soil eroded from disturbed upland areas, agricultural fields, construction sites, and mine spoil, fills the spaces between rocks in the stream bed. It fills the void beneath a flat stone where a hellbender should be nesting. It smothers egg masses. It reduces dissolved oxygen in the water column. It is to a hellbender what asphyxiation is to a human being: slow, invisible, and ultimately fatal. Of the roughly 626 known historical hellbender populations across their range, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service estimates that 41% are now believed to be extirpated, gone. Another 36% are in decline. In 2024, the service proposed listing the eastern hellbender as endangered throughout its entire range. There are people working on this. That sentence, deceptively simple, quietly radical, is perhaps the most important thing to know about the current state of Yellow Creek and its watershed. Not enough people, and not with enough resources, and not fast enough to fully match the pace of decline. But working, committed, applying the tools of ecology, watershed science, and conservation biology to a problem that is also a moral one. What do we owe the living systems we have damaged in the course of building our economy and our culture? The Yellow Creek Watershed Restoration Coalition, a grassroots organization that began when Knox Township area trustees contacted the Jefferson County Soil and Water Conservation District out of concern for acid mine drainage, has grown over more than a decade into a functioning 501c3 conservation organization. Its mission is the restoration and protection of water quality in the Yellow Creek watershed. Its membership spans concerned citizens, landowners, local businesses, and state and federal agencies. The coalition's work includes the identification of pollution sources, the development of acid mine drainage abatement plans, and the coordination of the Yellow Creek Watershed Action Plan. A comprehensive science-based roadmap for restoring the watershed to something approaching its pre-industrial function. The Ohio Division of Wildlife maintains hellbender monitoring programs as part of its broader amphibian and reptile conservation work, focusing on the unglaciated streams of eastern and southeastern Ohio, where hellbender habitat, cold, clear, rocky-bottomed water, still has the potential to exist. In partnership with institutions including the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium and the Toledo Zoo, the division has developed captive breeding and head-starting programs. The practice of raising hellbenders in controlled, disease-free environments through their most vulnerable early life stages before releasing them into suitable stream habitat. In neighboring states, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Missouri, head-starting programs have demonstrated genuine success in bolstering wild populations. Ohio's efforts represent the application of those lessons to a landscape where the potential for recovery still exists, if the habitat can be improved enough to receive it. The challenge unique to Yellow Creek is a challenge common to many eastern Ohio watersheds. The land is privately held. The creek runs through farms and woodlots and mining reclamation sites that belong to individual families and corporations. Conservation here cannot be mandated from above. It must be built from below, through relationships, through voluntary conservation easements, through agricultural best management practices that persuade a farmer to leave a riparian buffer of native vegetation along the creek bank rather than plowing to the waterline. The USGS and academic researchers from Ohio universities provide the scientific monitoring that makes the case: water quality data, biological indices, population surveys. But the decision to act on that data belongs to the people who own the land and live beside the creek. It always has. The standing rock of Yellow Creek cannot be moved. That is, in conservation terms, extraordinarily useful. Rocks don't require riparian buffer agreements. They don't require funding cycles or permit renewals. They don't erode when a spring flood tops the bank. The rock is already there, already doing what a hellbender needs a rock to do, providing shelter, deflecting current, creating the complex microhabitat that makes a healthy stream a healthy stream. The ecology around it can be restored. The sedimentation load upstream can be reduced. The agricultural practices on the watershed's margins can be improved. The riparian forest can be replanted. The rock will be here when it is, waiting, as it has always waited, receiving the returning water guardian with the same unhurried patience it brought to receiving the Shawnee, the surveyor, and the geologist. Stories of the water guardians have been passed down over time. 1. The deep pool rising shape. This is the most iconic Yellow Creek paranormal story tied to Standing Rock. People described a dark form rising vertically in the deep pool behind the rock, against the current, pausing at the surface, sinking without ripples. Some said serpent, some said shadow, some said a person made of water. For generations, people spoke of a shape rising in the deep pool behind the rock, a dark form that lifted against the current, paused, and slipped beneath the surface without disturbing the water. Another story tied to Standing Rock is the eyes beneath the rock. This ties directly to the guardian as a watcher, as an ancient protector. Witnesses described two pale lights under the rock at night, hovering just below the surface, moving slowly, vanishing when approached. Families living near the creek spoke of two pale lights beneath the rock. Eyes, they said, watching from the water, vanishing the moment anyone drew near. Woven into the history of Yellow Creek and Standing Rock is the story of the drowning that didn't happen. A benevolent guardian moment, great emotional contrast. A child swept under during a flood was found standing on the opposite bank, dry, claiming, "Something pushed me up." One early account tells of a child swept under during a flood, only to be found standing on the opposite bank, dry, insisting that the water pushed me up. All of the history, all of the stories, all of the time the Standing Rock protected Yellow Creek has brought us to the conservation of the water guardian. All of the history, all of the stories, all of the time the Standing Rock protected Yellow Creek has brought us to the conservation of the Water Guardian. In streams where hellbender populations have been successfully restored, including sections of the Allegheny River drainage in Pennsylvania and tributaries of the New River in West Virginia, recovery required: 1. Meaningful reduction in fine sediment inputs. 2. Restoration of riparian forest canopy to maintain water temperature. 3. Elimination or significant reduction of water quality contaminants. And 4. A source population, either through natural immigration or assisted introduction via headstarting. Yellow Creek's upper watershed retains enough structural integrity to be a candidate for all 4 interventions. A restored Yellow Creek, flowing cold and clear over its sandstone shelves, with its large flat rocks undisturbed by silt, is not an impossible vision. It is a biological and hydrological possibility, contingent on human choices made in the next 10 to 30 years. Thank you for watching The Standing Rock of Yellow Creek. Part 3, The Water Guardian. Part 4, What the Water Carries, is available in the Road of Echoes profile. If you're watching on YouTube or TikTok, please like, subscribe, follow, and share. Your support keeps Road of Echoes moving forward.